Before I begin, I need to warn you that this story contains mature themes. It deals with the complexities of relationships, family dynamics, and infidelity. If these topics make you uncomfortable, you might want to stop here. I used to believe my life was perfect. Picture this: a beautiful home in the suburbs, a devoted husband who loved me unconditionally, and a life that seemed, at least on the surface, like something straight out of a fairy tale. We had everything we thought we wanted. The kind of life that makes your friends a little jealous and your family proud. But life has a strange way of revealing cracks in even the most polished surfaces. I met Marcus when I was 25. He was older 32 at the time, but that age gap didn't matter. He had this confidence about him, like he knew exactly where his life was heading. And I was instantly drawn to that certainty. We met at a bookstore downtown, both reaching for the same novel. It sounds cliche, I know. But in that moment when our hands touched, I felt a spark. One of those ridiculous, heart-racing, movie-like moments that you don't think happen in real life. But there it was. We dated for 4 years before getting married. Our relationship felt effortless. We'd stay up late talking about everything and nothing: our dreams, our fears, the kind of house we'd want, the trips we'd take. We had our own little world, filled with inside jokes, shared glances across crowded rooms, and lazy Sunday mornings spent tangled in each other's arms. He was thoughtful, attentive, and always knew how to make me laugh, even on my worst days. Our wedding was perfect. It wasn't some grand, extravagant affair, but it didn't need to be. It was just us, surrounded by the people we loved, promising forever. And for a while, it felt like forever was exactly where we were headed. But as the years went on, something shifted. Not all at once. It wasn't like we woke up one day and realized we were strangers. It was slow, almost imperceptible. The kind of change you only notice when you stop to really look. Marcus still loved me. I never doubted that. But the spark that once set my heart ablaze started to dim. The passionate kisses turned into quick pecks on the cheek. The late night talks became brief exchanges about bills and grocery lists. We were still a team, still partners in every sense of the word. But the intimacy, the excitement, it wasn't the same. At first, I thought maybe it was just the natural progression of marriage. I mean, who stays in that honeymoon phase forever, right? Life gets busy, routines take over, and you settle into comfort. But deep down, I missed the way he used to look at me like I was the only woman in the world. I missed feeling, desired. And then Isabella came into our lives. It wasn't anything dramatic. We hired her as a housekeeper, simple as that. Marcus had been working longer hours, and I was juggling my job and managing the house. Cleaning became this overwhelming task that neither of us had the energy for. A friend recommended. Isabella said she was professional, thorough, trustworthy, everything you'd want in someone who's going to be in your home. She was in her mid-20s with this effortless beauty that caught your eye, without her even trying. Dark, wavy hair that always seemed to fall perfectly over her shoulders, and these piercing blue eyes that felt like they could see right through you. But it wasn't just her looks, it was her presence. There was something about the way she carried herself, confident, yet unassuming. The first time I met her, I remember thinking, she's just here to clean, nothing more. But that thought, it didn't stick. At first. It was all very professional. She'd come in, do her work quietly, and leave, without much more than a polite smile and have a nice day. But over time, small conversations started. Little things: asking about my day, complimenting the way I decorated the living room, laughing at some silly comment I made. Harmless, right? But then I noticed the way she looked at me. It wasn't overt, nothing that screamed inappropriate, just different, attentive. Like she was seeing me in a way Marcus hadn't in a long time. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice, or that I didn't like it. At the time, I brushed it off. She's just being friendly, I told myself. I'm imagining things. But deep down, a seed had been planted. And once it's there, it's hard to ignore. Looking back now, I wonder if that was the moment everything started to unravel. If Isabella's presence in our home was the match that lit a fire I didn't even know was waiting to burn at first, I convinced myself that Isabella was just refreshing, you know? Someone new to talk to in the house. Someone who brought a little lightness to the monotony of my day. But it didn't take long before I realized it was more than that. I started to notice things. Small things that, at first, seemed insignificant. The way my heart would beat just a little faster when I heard the door click open, signaling her arrival. The way I'd catch myself checking the mirror before she got there, smoothing my hair or adjusting my top, even though I told myself it was nothing. But it was something. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. Isabella had this way of making me feel seen. Not in some obvious, flirtatious way, it was more subtle than that. She remembered things about me. Things Marcus had long forgotten, or maybe never noticed in the first place. Like how I preferred my coffee with just a splash of cream, no sugar. Or how I always hummed the same tune when I was deep in thought. Even though I didn't realize I did it. One day, I mentioned offhandedly that I had a headache, nothing major, just a passing comment. But the next time she came over, she brought this little tin of lavender oil, said it might help. It was such a small gesture, but it stuck with me. Marcus wouldn't have even thought twice about something like that. And it wasn't just what she remembered, it was how she looked at me. There was this intensity in her gaze. Respectful, sure, but focused. Like she was really seeing me. Like she noticed the parts of me that had started to fade into the background of my own life. Our conversations started simple. She'd ask how my day was. I'd ask about hers. But soon, we were talking about more than just the weather or what needed cleaning. We'd sit at the kitchen table after she finished her work, sipping tea and laughing about silly things. She'd tell me stories about her childhood, her dreams, her frustrations, and I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't in years. I told her about my job, my marriage, the little things that weighed on me but felt too trivial to mention to Marcus. Isabella listened. Not just the polite, nodding kind of listening, but the kind where you know the person genuinely cares about what you're saying. It felt good. Too good, before I even realized it. I was rearranging my schedule to match hers. I'd push errands to later in the day or come home early, just to make sure I was around when she was there. I'd find reasons to linger in rooms where she was working, pretending to tidy up or organize something, just to be near her. There was this unspoken tension between us. I could feel it in the way our eyes would meet and linger just a second too long, in the way our hands would brush when passing something to each other. My stomach would flutter in a way I hadn't felt since Marcus and I first started dating. But this wasn't dating. This was something else, something dangerous. I tried to rationalize it. It's just admiration, I told myself. She's young, vibrant, interesting. That's all it is. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I'd catch myself thinking about her when she wasn't around, wondering what she was doing. If she was thinking about me I started dreaming about her. Not in any explicit way, but dreams where we were just together, close, connected. And with every passing day, it became harder to ignore the pull I felt toward her. One evening, Marcus had to work late. It wasn't unusual. His job often kept him out past dinner. I was alone in the house when Isabella arrived for her usual shift. But something about that night felt different. We ended up sitting in the living room after she finished cleaning. The conversation started off light, like it always did. But then it shifted. She opened up about a past relationship, how she'd been betrayed by someone she thought she could trust. The pain in her voice was raw, and I felt this overwhelming urge to comfort her. Without thinking, I reached out and placed my hand on hers. The moment our skin touched, a spark shot through me. I could see it in her eyes. She felt it too. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. Instead, I found myself telling her things I hadn't even admitted to myself. How lonely I'd been feeling. How disconnected I felt from Marcus, despite loving him. How I missed feeling desired. Feeling wanted. Isabella didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me, her eyes soft, understanding. And then she whispered, "You deserve to feel wanted." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew I should pull away, create distance. But I didn't. I couldn't. There was something intoxicating about the way she made me feel. That night, nothing physical happened, but something far more dangerous had begun. An emotional line had been crossed. And once that line is crossed, there's no going back. It was a Thursday evening. I remembered that because Marcus always had late meetings on Thursdays, and the house felt emptier than usual. The sky outside was heavy, swollen with dark clouds that promised rain. By the time Isabella arrived, the storm had rolled in, drenching everything in sight. The rhythmic tapping of rain against the windows filled the silence between us. I wasn't expecting her to stay long that night. She usually finished her work quickly, leaving me alone with my thoughts. But something felt different. The air was thick not just with humidity, but with something else, something unspoken. The lights flickered once, then again, before finally giving out completely. The whole house was cast in this dim, muted glow from the streetlights outside. It should have felt eerie, but it didn't. Instead, it felt intimate, like the world had shrunk down to just the two of us. We found ourselves in the kitchen, lit only by the soft flicker of a candle I'd pulled from the drawer. Isabella was sitting across from me, her face bathed in that warm, golden light. She looked beautiful. More than beautiful, she looked real in a way that made my heart ache. We were talking about nothing, how unpredictable the weather had been, how the power company never seemed to fix outages quickly. But under the surface, there was a tension neither of us acknowledged. It buzzed between us, pulling tighter with every passing second. And then it happened. Our hands brushed as we both reached for the same mug. It was innocent, should have been, at least, but the moment our skin touched, time seemed to slow. I didn't pull my hand away. Neither did she. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, we just stayed there, frozen. But everything inside me was on fire. I finally pulled back, my heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. I tried to laugh it off, make some joke about us being clumsy, but the words got stuck in my throat. Isabella didn't say anything. She just looked at me, her eyes soft but intense. And in that look, I saw everything I'd been trying to ignore. The desire, the understanding, the want. The room felt too small. My skin felt too tight. I told myself to stand up, to walk away, to put some distance between us. But I didn't move. The next time our eyes met, she didn't hesitate. She leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to stop her. But I didn't. I couldn't. Her lips met mine. And in that instant, the world fell away. It wasn't rushed or frantic. It was slow, deliberate, like we were both savoring a secret we'd been holding onto for too long. Her lips were soft, warm, and the taste of her sent a jolt through my entire body. I'd never kissed a woman before. I'd never even thought about it. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was how right it felt, how alive I suddenly was. When I finally pulled back, I was breathless. My heart was racing, my skin tingling. I stared at her, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. "I can't," I whispered, my voice barely audible. But even as I said the words, I knew they were a lie, because my body was still leaning toward her, because every part of me was screaming for more. Isabella didn't push. She just sat there, her eyes searching mine. I've wanted to do that for a long time, she admitted softly. Her voice was steady, but there was a vulnerability in her words that caught me off guard. But I didn't want to overstep. I didn't want to ruin anything. Her honesty hit me harder than the kiss had. This wasn't just some fleeting attraction for her. She felt something, and that scared me more than anything. I wanted to tell her it was a mistake, that we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down, I didn't believe it was a mistake. That night, after she left, I sat alone in the dark, replaying every moment in my mind, the way her lips felt on mine, the warmth of her hand against my skin, the way my heart had raced in, a way it hadn't in yours. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness brought on by loneliness and a flickering candle. But even as I tried to convince myself, I knew it wasn't true. The truth was, I didn't feel guilty, not the way I thought I would. What I felt was something far more dangerous, excitement. And that was the real problem. Because once you taste something forbidden, once you let yourself feel something you've buried deep down, it's impossible to forget. It lingers, it grows. And no matter how much you tell yourself to stop, you don't want to. After that night, I told myself it couldn't happen again. I convinced myself it was a mistake, a fleeting lapse in judgment. But no matter how hard I tried to push Isabella from my mind, she was there, in every quiet moment, in every empty space Marcus left behind. She lingered. I thought avoiding her would make it easier. I tried staying out longer when I knew she'd be at the house. I busy myself with errands or pretend I had extra work to do. But the moment I walked through that door and caught even the faintest trace of her perfume in the air, my resolve crumbled. It wasn't just physical, it was the pull. An invisible thread that connected us, tightening with every glance. Every accidental touch. Our interactions changed. They were charged now, electric. The simple act of passing a dishcloth or brushing by each other in the hallway felt like a spark waiting to ignite. We didn't have to say anything. It was all in the looks, the lingering silences that said more than words ever could. Then came the first secret meeting. Marcus had left early for a weekend business trip. I told myself it would be the perfect time to clear my head, to reset. But the minute Isabella walked through the door, all those good intentions vanished. I offered her coffee, pretending everything was normal. But when our fingers touched as I handed her the mug, we both froze. The air felt thick, suffocating. And then, without thinking, I pulled her toward me. What started as a stolen kiss in the kitchen quickly spiraled. We found ourselves tangled on the couch, our hands exploring, hearts racing. It wasn't just lust, it was like we were trying to make up for every moment we'd pretended. This wasn't happening. Afterward, I sat there, breathless and overwhelmed. Isabella rested her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, desired, in a way I hadn't felt in years. But when she left and the house fell silent again, the weight of what we'd done hit me. Marcus returned the next day, completely unaware of the betrayal that had taken place in our living room. He kissed me hello, wrapped his arms around me like he always did, and I felt a knot twist in my stomach. I swear the house looks better every time I come home, he said with a chuckle. Isabella's worth every penny. I forced a smile, nodding along, but inside, I was unraveling. He had no idea, no clue that the woman he trusted to keep our home clean had touched me in ways he hadn't in years. The guilt gnawed at me, but it wasn't enough to stop what was happening. The affair intensified. We became reckless in our caution, finding moments when Marcus was at work or running errands. A brush of the hand while folding laundry turned into stolen kisses behind closed doors. Whispered conversations in the hallway turned into hurried, breathless encounters in the guest room. And through it all, Marcus remained oblivious. He was still the loving husband he'd always been, still thoughtful and kind. But every time he looked at me with that familiar warmth, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. I loved him. I did. But with Isabella, it was different. She made me feel alive in a way Marcus hadn't in years. She saw parts of me I didn't even realize were missing. But the guilt, it was always there, like a shadow following me through every interaction with Marcus. I'd catch myself studying his face, wondering if he suspected anything. But he never did. He trusted me completely, and that trust made everything worse. I started to question everything. Did I love Marcus enough to stay? Or had I outgrown the life we'd built together? Was love enough when passion and desire had found a new home in someone else? I didn't have the answers. All I knew was that I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and with every secret touch, every whispered promise, I was stepping closer to the fall. It was a Tuesday evening, and Marcus wasn't supposed to be home for hours. He had told me he had a late meeting, something with a client that would keep him tied up well past dinner. So when Isabella showed up, it felt like we had all the time in the world. We were in the living room, our usual caution tossed aside. Her hands were on my waist, her lips trailing soft, dangerous kisses along my neck. The sound of the rain tapping against the windows was the only thing filling the room, until I heard it. The unmistakable sound of keys jingling in the lock. For a second, I froze, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Isabella's eyes widened in panic, and we scrambled, me fixing my hair, smoothing out my clothes. Isabella darting toward the back hallway. Marcus's voice echoed from the front door. "Babe, I'm home early." I barely managed to steady my breathing before he rounded the corner, his face lighting up when he saw me. But I knew I didn't look like myself. My face flushed, my shirt slightly askew. "Hey," he said, dropping his bag by the door, surprised to see Isabella's car outside. I thought she was done for the day. I forced a smile. Oh, yeah, she just left. I was tidying up after. He didn't question it, but I could feel the walls closing in. From that night on, something shifted. Marcus didn't say anything outright, but I could tell he was watching me closer. He started noticing the little things, the way I seemed distracted during our conversations, how I drift off in the middle of a sentence, lost in thoughts I couldn't share. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, watching a movie, something we used to enjoy together, but I wasn't there. My mind was elsewhere, tangled up in memories of Isabella's touch, her voice whispering in my ear. "You okay?" Marcus asked, his eyes narrowing just slightly. "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied too quickly, my voice too light. But I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He didn't press, but the seed had been planted. Then came the night everything unraveled. Marcus had gone out for drinks with friends, or so I thought. Isabella was at the house, and we were careless. We didn't expect him home for hours. We were in the bedroom, our bedroom, when I heard the front door slam shut. Panic surged through me. Isabella scrambled, grabbing her things and darting into the adjoining bathroom. I barely had time to adjust my clothes when I heard Marcus's footsteps in the hallway. Then the doorknob rattled. It was locked. "Why is the door locked?" he called out, his voice calm but laced with suspicion. I fumbled with the lock, my hands trembling. When I finally opened the door, Marcus stood there, his eyes scanning my face, my disheveled hair. The flushed look I couldn't hide. I was just taking a nap," I stammered, my voice shaky. His eyes darted past me into the room, then back to me. "Where's Isabella?" My heart dropped. She left earlier. But the lie hung heavy in the air. Marcus didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me. And in that silence, I felt everything crumble. "Tell me the truth," he finally whispered, his voice low, almost broken. "What's going on?" I couldn't lie anymore. The guilt was suffocating, pressing down on me until I couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "It's Isabella. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, and I couldn't stop." Marcus stepped back like I'd slapped him, his face pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Was I never enough?" he choked out, his voice raw. full of pain. I tried to reach for him, but he pulled away like my touch burned. Without another word, he grabbed his keys and stormed out the door, leaving me standing there alone in a house that suddenly felt too big, too empty, too cold. The walls that once felt like home now felt like a prison, and the silence was louder than any scream. The house felt different after Marcus left. It was the same space, the same furniture, the same walls, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt hollow, like the life we'd built together had been sucked out, leaving only echoes behind. I sat in the living room, staring at the door, half expecting him to come back, to walk in, forgive me, and pretend none of this had happened. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The silence wrapped around me, heavy and suffocating. I retraced every step that led me here, every glance, every touch, every choice I made. I thought about Isabella's smile, the way she made me feel alive. I thought about Marcus's laugh, the way his eyes used to light up when he looked at me. And I asked myself the question I couldn't escape. Was it worth it? I gained something, sure. Isabella showed me a side of myself I never knew existed. She made me feel seen, desired, alive. But at what cost? I lost the man who loved me unconditionally. I lost the comfort of a life we'd built together, the trust we shared. I lost the version of myself I thought I knew, the woman who believed she'd never betray. I don't know if Marcus will ever forgive me. I don't know if I even deserve it. And I don't know if this was just a mistake or the beginning of something I needed to face all along. But here's what I do know. I never thought I'd be the one who betrays. But life has a way of leading you into the unknown. And sometimes you don't find your true self until you cross a line you can never cross back. The question now isn't whether I can undo what I've done. It's whether I can live with who I've become. And whether the person I discovered in Isabella's arms was worth losing everything I thought I wanted. Some lines, once crossed, change you forever. And there's no going back to who you were before. All you can do is move forward, carrying the weight of your choices, and hope that somewhere in the wreckage, you can find a way to build something new, something honest, something real, even if it's not what you originally planned.